you hear me?
Can everyone hear Robin?
Can you hear me? Anyone?
Loud and clear?
No? Oh.
Is your mic's on?
Yeah.
All right, let's see here. I think. Am I the only one that people can hear?
I can hear you loud and clear, Jeff. I can't hear Robin.
Is it because it's off your laptop or is it off your microphone?
I think it's coming off my laptop.
I can just sit, if I sit over here.
Yep.
If I sit on the edge.
All right.
All right.
In fact, we could probably switch seats if you wanted to.
Oh, that's okay. We can look at you. Oh, can you hear me now? Is that better? Okay, perfect. All right. Well, we'll start the working session. First up is the citizens forum. Nothing for the citizens forum, Jeff? Okay. Then next up are reports, starting with board committees. There's the policy committee.
Why don't you come over here? I will. I can move. Can you hear Corinne?
Can you hear me at all?
How about you unmute your mic or on your computer?
Okay, now I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Okay, let me do this.
Mute this one.
Sort of.
Okay, we'll make it work.
Take my mask off. Well, maybe I should have just let you cover it, Jeff. Shut this off. We are getting feedback. I thought I did. There we go. No, still. Okay, can you hear me without feedback? Yes, Boyd says, yeah, right. So we talked about a bunch of policies, sorry. And I think the main one that we need to discuss tonight as far as action at the board meeting was the school board member request for information, because it was a little bit undecided what the group felt. I think we were okay with keeping it, although I'm not sure if it was completely necessary.
Policy is not MSBA recommended policy. It was one that the school board a number of years ago, I drawn a blank on the year. They had, because there was a request from board members, honestly, for information from administration. Want to set up the process so that if information was requested, there were steps that the administration would take. And these as far as workflows on giving information for specific individual board members. So it's good practice is whatever, and this is what I follow, whatever one board member requests, and all of the board members should receive it. So that's kind of the history on why that policy was added. And there's really nothing wrong with the policy, but it's not not one that is recommended by MSBA.
So on the board agenda for tonight, we have it for approval of one reading and adoption of the policy. And I think where this is just, we do the one reading to recognize that it still is on the books. But if there's reason to take it off, or somebody feels strongly, then we can discuss that more too. But I think overall the committee was comfortable with leaving it, right? And it does offer some level of protection. Yeah. And then otherwise, the other thing was just the removal of the policies. So there's going to be 3 readings to remove policies, was health and safety, wellness programs and tools to complete those, job descriptions, and then 441 comparable worth. And I think all of those were either expired or the one was really vague. It didn't really offer anything of substance. So it was just kind of some cleanup on those. Anything else? Probably it.
I have a question or two. I can't hear Jeff I can hear him just, it's very quiet. It's
Tim is-
way in the background, so I don't get a good
Sorry,
feel from-
School Forest Committee.
What's that? Can you hear me, Robin?
Hang on there, Tim. Okay, try again.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. I could not hear you very well, Jeff, when you were giving that explanation, so I may at some point, not now, but ask you to re-explain the school board's right to access information.
Yep.
I had 2 other questions on policy, and I guess now's the time as opposed to waiting for the regular session. In one of the policies, there was a little bit rewrite, but in terms of the use of reasonable force, as student restraint, and 2 questions that I had on that was, is there training that gets involved in what is reasonable force in terms of a restraint of a kid? And in the superintendent's description of the use of that restraint and responsibility, it was in the safety discussion. The superintendent was not allowed to, or at least it did not say anything about using a reasonable amount of force, whereas everybody else had that opportunity, principals on down through teachers and other school personnel. So just 2 general questions on that.
Okay,
Is that policy 506?
which was that under student discipline? Trying to figure out which policy are we referring to? .506.
I think so.
No. Can you hear me okay? All right. So I will try to answer. For restraints, that falls under CPI training, and I'm going to forget the acronym. But we have yearly training for staff that have to be trained to do specific holds or restraints for students. And referring to the superintendent not in there, this superintendent is also the elementary principal, so I get that training as well. But we have a response team, so not any, well, there's certain circumstances where a staff member may step in with reasonable force, but for any restraints or anything of students, we do have a response team and people that get trained on a yearly basis through BRIC. I don't know if that answers, does that answer that question, Tim?
Yep, just was curious how that panned out. Yep.
Yep, and we get a certificate stating that we've completed that testing. And primarily, it's a handful of teachers, administrators, a lot of the staff that do support work with some of our special ed students. But that's how that's handled. And as far as the other policy on requesting information, school board members requesting information, the comment I made was that's not an MSBA recommended policy. That was something that was added a number of years ago when it was felt that there needed to be a process for school board members to follow to request information. And so there was more consistency. I think it was added because there was a time frame where there was lots of information being asked for from specific school board members. So the policy is just, when the school board member wants information, they can request it. But if it gets burdensome, then it goes through the whole board so that it's a board decision saying, yes, we should have this information and please present it. I don't know if that addresses that question.
Yeah, I didn't have too much of a question on it. I just knew you had you were discussing it in the background.
Yep.
There. I just couldn't hear you specifically.
Yep.
And then finally, as long as I got my mic on there, there was an advisory committee that there was a little bit of a change made to that as well. But in terms of goal setting on a yearly basis, is that, and that was on page 124 of the board packet, and I'm calling that up as I'm talking to you, but is that coincidental with the world's best workforce, or is that committee that was supposed to be established consisting of parents, students, businessmen in the community, board members, teachers, that community, that are those two one and the same?
Yes, for the most part, that because there's such a small district, we don't have, we have quite a few committees, but we try to combine them as much as we can. So the world's best workforce does cover a lot of that. Some of the strategic planning, when we had that other committee, would address some of the other things as well. So it's kind of covered in a couple different areas, but the world's best workforce does cover a lot of these committees and things like that.
Okay, thank you.
So next is the school forest committee. Do they have a,
Yeah, maybe Tim wants to talk on that.
Tim, do you want to talk on
I'm
that?
more than happy to keep talking as long as my mic's on. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, at School Forest, we discussed the bulk of the conversation revolved around that candlelight ski, which is taking place this Thursday from 5 to 7 o'clock. It's coincidental with a hockey game that's going on, so there hopefully will be a little bit of a crowd there, but anybody who has a notion about either snowshoeing or cross-country skiing is encouraged and welcome to come on out. There'll be fire and hot chocolate. It should be a nice night, so temperatures look to be reasonable. Trails are groomed, and come on out. We're also talking about the third grade class is going to put pollinator plants out this year in an effort to attract some pollinators like butterflies. And we talked about the replanting of what has just been, or retreeing of what has just been forested off over in the school forest in Pitt. So projects underway, and I guess a lot of that gets pointed at the teachers in their classes, at least the tree planting and the pollination parts of it. So that's what I've got from that meeting.
Okay. Next up is the superintendent elementary principal. Yeah, report.
So I sent out last week very lengthy board report, and that's what I'll be working off of tonight for the most part. Enrollment report. District enrollment has increased by 3 pupils since January. Elementary increased by 4, and we're at 261 students. And high school is down 1 student. Our enrollment remains steady for the year. We're up 1 student from the start of the school in September. But also keep in mind that we did have a chunk of enrollment go out last year with our graduating seniors. Safe learning plan update. Well, I'll go off the other agenda. School nurses report was in the board packet. She's been staying busy with the normal nurse activities, but also with COVID stuff. She's been staying even more busy. So any questions on that nurses report? And then the safe learning plan update. We've transitioned the high school now is full-time in person. It went very well. I'd like to give kudos to Mary Merchant for getting everything set up and organizing, getting kids back here, getting classes, desks and chairs set up, working with teachers to get ready for kids. Also, Seth and the custodians did a great job with dragging out the furniture that's been in storage for most of the year and getting that into classrooms and measuring out so that we can maintain that minimum of 3 feet for the larger classrooms, and we try to spread them out even more with the smaller class sizes. Brent Cole did a great job with revamping some of our bus routes and communicating with parents, any time changes. And I still want to thank all the parents as well for transporting kids as much as possible. That's helped tremendously this year. Our track system around the school isn't perfect, but we're getting through winter now without too many hiccups. It's not perfect, but everyone's making it work. So it's a good place to be right now with all the kids here on a regular basis, and we're gonna fight like heck to keep them here. With all that said, we still work with local public health, and in that board report, I put in quite a lengthy update that Kay had provided as far as some of the case counts the last few weeks. And I also included some of our case rate per 10,000. If you remember, that was kind of the original number that we used when we determined our learning model at the beginning of the school year. I don't think I'm going to report on this number anymore because it's not really used for anything. Moving forward, we're looking more at, like we've done in the past, when a certain percentage of your kids are out for the flu, what steps do schools take? And if you remember several years ago, we had quite a few kids out for the flu, and we closed down for a long weekend to disinfect. I think as cases come up and we have positive exposures in the building, we're gonna go by classrooms or wherever the contact tracing takes us. And as long as we can control the transmission and the spread within the building, that's how we'll handle it. So we're gonna try not to have to close down everything as much as we can. But there is that possibility that we could have a spike within the building and we might not have any choice. So we will continue to work with local public health to monitor that, and hopefully we can catch things right away. And because it hasn't gone away, and as we all know with the variant stuff around, I think we're gonna see a rise in our local cases. Roseau's seeing it right now. There's a number of counties in the area. I think it's inevitable that we might have another spike locally. And if we can try to maintain it, catch it before there's lots of transmission, I think we can get through the next 3 months of school. Saliva testing, we still offer that every other week for all staff. We've had the last couple times we've done it, we've had about 30 staff that come in and take that. We do that Thursday, 2:30 to 4, and then the next morning, 7:30 to 10:30, and it's shipped on Friday afternoon. And the last two times this week I got my email that they received it on Saturday, and 2 hours later I got my results back. So the last couple of times we give it on that Thursday, Friday, we have the results before the next Monday. And I think that's really important that we get more and more staff to do that, so that we can catch any active cases, especially those that are non-symptomatic, because that's how we're going to try to slow down the spread a little bit. Vaccines, I think we're sitting very good, even with, there's been a delay, and that impacted some of us that had to go to Thief River Falls for vaccination. And I think it's impacted local public health, but I think they're getting back on schedule. As of February 12th, we have 76 school staff who have received their first dose. And we have 7 staff who were on a waiting list, but they'll probably be on a waiting list for a couple of weeks, it sounds like, with the delay. And we have 36 staff that have not signed up or indicated they want to decline the vaccine. So the next couple of weeks, we've started a second round of shots for people. Overall, we're at about 70% of all of our staff, and that's bus drivers, office staff, custodians. We're out 70% have gotten the vaccine or will be getting it. When we look at our certified classroom teachers, school social workers, and our substitute teachers, we're at 82% will be vaccinated. And we've already had a few subs who have been waiting to get vaccinated sign up and say, I can come in now and sub when you're needed. So that's in place as well. So that's my safe learning plan update. Any questions so far? I'm not done. I have a lot more. So any questions on that piece of it before I move on? Okay, also in that report, I had mentioned that we met with local emergency management, and they're developing a multi-year joint exercise planning. And the focus of our discussion was intruder, shooter, bomb threat, that type of thing. It was a very good meeting, and we'll be having more. What I took out of that meeting was that we have some work that we need to get back up on track. We spent a lot of time focusing on COVID, but the crisis committee will be working on a number of initiatives coming up. One is to update our procedures and policies, make sure that's a kind of an ongoing thing. We're also planning to implement ALICE training for next year. We're fortunate to have Ms. Merchant, who is a certified trainer, and we'll be identifying a core group of staff who she will be working with, and then we'll be working with staff and students next fall when they come back on ALICE training. And we'll have more information exactly what ALICE training is. It's an acronym that I'm terrible remembering acronyms, but we'll go over that. It's a very good training, and it's something that we need to pursue. And then the third thing, and that'll lead into some of our other discussions with the finance committee, is we need to upgrade our radio system. EMS and the local sheriff and everything, they have transitioned over to the Armor VHF system. So our VH or UHF system in the buses and our walkie-talkies is not compatible. So we're kind of out of a key communication tool with law enforcement. We have to rely more on cell phone usage and that type of thing. And that was one of our discussions, is that delay in communication can be a crucial thing if there's a crisis. So I think, and it's an expensive system to get, but I think we need to try to move in that direction to upgrade our communication, especially way up here in the North Country.
Did they tell you how much each radio costs?
Yeah.
About $5,000.
Yeah, yes, the new ones there's used ones, but you know, it's a $60,000 just for the buses roughly.
Yep.
You know, so it's not cheap. You
I know
and
the highway department's running into the same thing. And we may not go the armored route, at least not yet, just because we don't need that level. So I don't know. We may have to come up with other routes. They may have to get a
Yeah.
UHF to still communicate with us.
I'll try that with them. But I think one thing we're looking at is at least getting some handheld. And so we have some available within the building and maybe some of the buses for short term. But I think long term, we might want to look at how we can do it piecemeal. I don't think we can afford or come up with the money to do it in one big purchase unless we can find a grant. But I think we need to start planning and working on getting that communication updated.
Jeff, have you heard of other schools that have gone through a similar situation?
Some schools have and some schools have opted out. It's not a requirement. I know it's been a couple of years we've gone back and forth discussing this. And quite honestly, it's the cost has been prohibitive. But I'm not sure what else would work. That's something we're working on, and that's something that we'll continue to discuss.
Say, Jeff, real quick, when someone asks a question and they're not hooked up, could you repeat the question? Because I know I couldn't really hear.
All right, I'm sorry. What was the question again? It was a very elegant question. I don't know if I can repeat it. Oh, what are other schools doing? And I said, I'd have to do some research. I think some other schools have gone that route. But I don't think there's a lot of them, so that's something I'd have to research. Moving on, Minnesota State High School League, I think Chad will mention this later. There's information in the packet on a resolution to amend their constitution to include 2 superintendents in the state as representatives on their board. That is something that's been lacking for a long time, to the angst of us superintendents. So the district gets 1 vote, and I'm recommending that the district vote affirmative in making that change. And there's a few other minor changes done to the Constitution, but I think there's teachers, principals, coaches, a whole slew of people on that board. And there's some superintendents that are on some of the executive things, but there's not designated seats for superintendents. And I think superintendents have something to bring to the table. So I would encourage, when Chad brings that up, that we encourage him to vote yes on that. At the Finance Committee, we had representatives from Ellers. I have a lengthy write-up on that. And we were discussing a refinance opportunity for one of our bonds, which can bring considerable savings to our taxpayers. And we're also looking at a capital projects levy to go out to the voters, possibly this fall or in the near future. And that's to help us meet some of the financial challenges that we have coming. I just mentioned the communication with the armor radio system. That's a piece that could fall under this capital projects levy. We've gone to 1-to-1 in the high school on technology. That's another need that we've learned from COVID. Even if we come back, having that technology available for students and staff in the classroom is important. Having good connectivity speed is important. And all that stuff takes lots of finance and can be a burden on a school to cover those costs as well as all the other costs. So we're going to tentatively come up with a workshop board meeting mid-March prior to our next board meeting to discuss more details on all of those. And I'll let the Finance Committee go into more detail when we get to Crystal's report, if there's more stuff that they want to add. But those are 2 big things coming up. And then also in my update, I did send you my superintendent schedule for the next couple weeks. And my plans to be out of the building for an extended time, but still working remotely. So please take a look at that and let me know if you have any concerns or questions on any of what I'm going to be up to in the next few weeks. And then I have our meetings, board meetings and committee meetings coming up in February and March added on there as well. And then one other thing I want to close with, I gotta make sure I got everything so I don't miss something. This is an important week. And I mentioned this on the radio show this morning. This week is Minnesota School Board Recognition Week. The Minnesota School Boards Association has designated this week as a time to recognize the vital role that our elected school board members play in our society. And I'll probably read this maybe at the regular board meeting as well, because I think it needs to be there too. Our school board members play a critical role in creating a vision that reflects what the local community wants the school district to be, and for making student achievement the top priority. School board members make many difficult decisions and spend countless hours working with staff, parents, and community members to ensure our students get the best education possible, and also ensuring a high level accountability that our citizens expect. So with all of that said, I want to thank each and every one of you, board members, for serving the community in our school. You have probably impacted the school more than you realize. It's a lot more than just the monthly meeting. It's how we conduct our meetings, how we work with staff and the community. And I think we have a very positive climate in the school building among staff and students and parents. And I think that all begins at the top with our board. So I appreciate all of you for how we work together and how we all have the same common goal in mind, and that's the kids and the well-being of our community. So the people that showed up in person today got a nice fancy certificate. I'll have to try to get you yours. But thank you. And at some point, it'd be nice to have a meal or something to celebrate in person, and hopefully someday we can get there. But again, thank you for all that you do for the school. You are greatly appreciated. And I think that's probably
That's it.
enough.
Okay, next up would be Mary with the high school principals report.
Good evening, everybody. I want to echo what Jeff said regarding high school and our going back to full-time every day for everybody, considering it was 11 months since everyone was in the building together. So my first go around with everybody, and kudos to so many people who made it happen and made it happen so smoothly. I know Larry was stressing a little bit just with the lunchroom, and we got some high school kids to help out and got that set up so quickly that those 2 days off, the custodians were able to get the rooms all set up in one day rather than needing the 2 full days. So I cannot praise everybody enough throughout the entire building, how they work together and just help each other out whenever anything comes up. When you go in the classrooms now, we are doing well beyond the 3 feet spacing. So we are fortunate with our student population and the arrangement of our classes that we're able to do that. Choir is maintaining being held in the auditorium. It just works better because of the number of kids in our junior high choir. And it's actually a nice setting for that to take place, and it will stay there for the remainder of this school year. And we'll see what next school year brings. Conferences for the high school were held last week throughout the week. Parents were invited to sign up for Zoom. Teachers reached out to parents if kids were struggling if they didn't sign up. So, and that's something honestly that goes on throughout the year, not just when we have it formally set for conferences. So want to really continue to encourage parents to contact teachers and vice versa whenever there's any kind of concerns. The Minnesota Association of Secondary School Principals Our winter conference was held through Zoom meetings, and that was the last week in January. And it actually extended one more day, but meetings were held at 10 o'clock and then 2, 3, and 4 o'clock, typically about an hour and a half for each session. So I was able to participate in those. Some of them really just sharing how they've been dealing with the different distance learning, hybrid learning, and then some keynote speakers. So very, very beneficial. The Northern Division principals, we continue to meet on a weekly basis, which has been helpful because, you know, there's always things that come up, and it's so great to be able to have a Zoom meeting, quite frankly, and not always have to leave because travel would be quite a distance for many of us. So nice to be able to meet on a regular basis and see what other schools are doing. And one of the hot topics has been prom, which is one of my bullets on here. And across the board, what the schools are looking at doing is doing Grand March. Some of them, their practice has been to have a meal, so they'll continue that. That has not been the practice at Lake of the Woods, but it is something that is being presented to the kids, whether it's a meal or some type of food along with it, and looking at Grand March. Now, with that said, my bullet on there says what we're looking at. April 24th is definitely our date, and other things are filling up quickly. That date was chosen by our prom advisors, looking at spring testing so that we are avoiding any conflicts there. And the other thing that I looked at, quite frankly, was just in case there would be a breakout from COVID, that still would give plenty of time for everybody to be over it for graduation. Because honestly, I know prom's important to the kids, but I certainly would hate to see somebody not be able to walk because of spreading of it. So that was another thing. With that said, last week, Mrs. Hasbargen, Mrs. Hazelton, and I met with the junior officers, and our request to them was to send a survey out to all the juniors and seniors to complete so that they could have their voice in what they would like to see for prom, and then looking at what our parameters are that we need to follow to be able to do the best we can for the kids within that. So we haven't gotten those results back yet. As soon as we get those back, we will meet again and then go from there. So I will keep the board posted on where we are with that. The Science Curriculum Committee met with the 6th grade teachers and the high school teachers. They've started to look at different curriculums. Really, the big change, like I shared before, is going to be the earth science. And so that we don't have any gaps. Next year, the physical science will be taught to our 8th and 9th graders because our 8th graders this year are getting the earth science. So then as a 9th grader, they will still need the physical science. So it'll be the same for those 2 grades next year. And then we'll be on the rotation where it does the shift for physical science to 8th grade. Right now, the companies that are looking the best actually are the ones with the online component that the 6th grade teachers and I think 7th and 8th grade classes have been using this year. So we will keep you updated on that as well. Very exciting news. Our welding class has an opportunity that's been brought to them to make and sell fishing spears. It was brought to them as an idea, and Mr. Lane just put a feeler out there today on a couple different Facebook sites, and we have over 100 parties that are interested in purchasing these from our kids already. So with that said, we have found a way to turn this welding class into an entrepreneurship, so we will also be able to afford the supplies we need for the welding class. That's been one thing that Mr. Solar has been very thrifty on this year, especially with starting out in hybrid and not knowing how much in person we could be doing. So materials to do the welding are something that's definitely a need. And now we found a way to really fund that for the class and for other things that we'd want our kids to make. I want to share the appreciation our families have had with increasing the fans that can attend to family and not just 2 per player. So that has been something that has been shared, that has been appreciated. And then InterQuest Detection Canine Unit, which visits our school a number of times throughout the year. I did have them scheduled to do an assembly demonstration. With all of our kids in the building, it just is not a practical thing that we can do and be distanced and follow that protocol safely. So tomorrow's their day that they're scheduled to come in. They are going to come in and we are going to do the demonstration, but we're going to video it. And so Mr. Sather is gonna video it, and then we will set a time that the students in their individual classrooms will be able to view that and get as close as we can to that same experience. And the nice thing is, if anybody isn't there, it's something we will have recorded and on hand for anybody to view at any time. And then forward with the ALICE training. And what ALICE stands for is, and I had a hard time remembering this too, alert, lockdown, inform, counter, and evacuate. So it really helps empower the staff and the students in our building to really be comfortable and knowledgeable in how to address a variety of situations that might come up within our building. And that is all I have. Do you have any questions for me? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Next up is the business office with Crystal and perhaps Boyd.
So we just talked about how Jeff kind of mentioned, we had a presentation from Ellers, Greg Crow and Matthew Hammer, as far as doing some refinancing with our current bond we have, possibly aligning that with doing capital projects levy. And as far as the timing and all that, we need to kind of figure out as far as if we're going to go forward with that piece of it. And that trying to find the littlest impact on the taxpayers with doing those two together. Otherwise, we just talked about the refine or the FY21 doing the budget and discussed a couple of those different items that we could look at. And as far as possibly utilizing some of those restricted funds for other items if need be. I think that's about all we talked about.
Yes, I would add that Crystal put together a nice informational packet.
Oh yes, I was going to say that, sorry.
Yeah, we'll email that out to all the board members and make sure that it's included in the board packet. So thank you, Crystal, for putting that together. It looks really good to me.
Yeah, so that just basically describes any of the items that seem to be a little over or under budget and just explaining why they are. So yes, I will forward that to the remaining board members that are not on the finance committee.
Okay. All right, thank you, Crystal. Next
I got a
is,
question.
oh yeah,
I got a question for Crystal or for Boyd, actually, because I think, Boyd, you brought it up a couple meetings ago. You asked if there was the possibility of getting hold of the auditor's office or the assessor's office, I don't know which one, and finding out exactly how many dollars we are expected to get in years to come, like next year, beyond just current year, and was wondering if you'd made any progress with something like that in terms of budgeting, but also when we start looking at where we're spending things, like we're going to on buildings and grounds tomorrow, but also on radios and on whatever else that we might need, how that year to come would pan out financially.
Yes, so I did talk to the county, Jamie Boretsky, about it, as far as is there a way to determine or have a better idea of what we'll be receiving in revenue. And basically there's not really to get like a definite, because whatever they receive is what we're going to receive. So basically the only thing we could really do is like look at the trend as far as previous years and as far as, you know, what we receive in tax money. But overall, like the Woods County, I think we're like in like 90%. I mean, we receive our tax money, majority of it. We don't have a lot of back tax money. So, but otherwise she said there's not really a way to like say for sure this is how much you're going to get. Yeah, we have our estimate. We have our estimates on our levy, but we can't guarantee that that's what we're going to receive. So it would be essentially looking at the trend from previous years and saying, okay, we typically receive, you know, 90% of the money overall. So that's like the way you can get the best guesstimate as far as what you're going to truly receive. I don't know if that answers that correctly or not.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to talk about finances and talk in terms around numbers. I mean, I think that that's what we're getting at. You know, we have a negotiation cycle coming up again, for instance, too. Just would really be nice to know 12 months down the road what it is we're going to have in our pocket. But I mean, I appreciate the fact that you followed up on the question, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much it varies, but again, every homeowner gets the projected property tax. So if they know that, our tax is based off the property tax. So I don't know. Logic dictates that we should have a pretty good idea of how much money we're going to get because the county knows pretty much how much they're going to get. I don't know how much that deviates between reality and the projected, but I mean, it always says it's an estimate, so.
Right. And that's kind of where they were at with it, just as far as, yes, this is what we should be receiving as long as everyone pays their taxes on time.
Yeah,
Or as
and it
far
should
as
be
when we get
reasonably
it.
close, right? I would think
Well,
so. It should be
We are,
reasonably
yes.
close.
I mean, yes, we are. So, I mean, basically we get that from our levy statement though. Essentially, this is what you should be receiving. So that's what we budget for. It's just that we can't guarantee that we're going to receive a full 100% of that. It might be 90%.
Yeah,
depending
budget for
upon-
90%, and if we get 100%, woohoo.
Then it's right, correct.
Well, I'm thinking of the PR benefits of being able to throw an article or a headline anyway in the paper that when we do refinance, for instance, a bond with Ellers, you know, it's not just a question of next November, we ask them for more, but in September, we tell them, okay, we've managed to reduce your tax load by this much in the upcoming year. And, you know, 4% or 1% or whatever that number might be, you know, with a refinancing on a bond, for instance. I know we did that a couple of years ago and personally didn't understand it very well. And I'm sure most of us who are paying taxes didn't either, but trying to get that out in the public.
Yeah, so that's one of the things we talked about too with Ellers as far as promoting that and showing that we have this large savings in our bond payments between like 2.4 million and 2.7. And then in return, we're going to ask for, you know, whatever dollar amount for the years going forward. And then we can present like how it's actually going to like truly affect your taxes. So yes, we're saving on this end. We're asking for this, but essentially it's going to be a wash between the two as far as it affects the taxpayers. So yes, we did talk about presenting that, you know, on the newspaper and all that kind of stuff. So people see that.
Not the whole board hasn't seen this document yet. No.
We will set, when we do the finance report that Crystal will send out, we'll also have some handouts from Ellers. That kind of goes over what we discussed tonight. So it'll talk about the refinancing and the saving sensitivity on that, as well as just a proposed tax impact sheet on what it would look like on paper for different properties. And as long as we're talking about that, we should maybe take a minute here and just try to set a meeting. It'd be a board workshop. Other than our normal working or board meeting night. I'm looking at Tuesday the 9th or Wednesday the 10th. like at 4 or 5 o'clock. Either of those dates work better.
Either of them work for me.
Do we want to do like a Wednesday at 5 or 4? We avoid any games that way.
Wednesday.
I can't be there the 10th, but
Well, you're gonna be gone on the 10th.
yeah,
Tuesday the 9th?
unless I can do Tuesday the 9th, or unless we did it like early morning on the 10th. I don't know if that works to do mornings. Oh yeah, I'll be able to be back by then.
What about Tuesday?
I'm good with the 9th, or the morning of the 10th is fine.
Okay,
I can do either.
I'm sorry.
I don't know off the top of my head for that Wednesday date.
Should we just go with the 9th?
Yeah, probably.
The 9th work for you, Crystal?
Yes.
4 o'clock work for everyone? Boyd, that work for you? Carla, I got a thumbs up. Tim? So I'll send out a Zoom invite and we'll have the ITV room available. And I might invite some of my administrative team as well. So it'd be Tuesday, the 9th at 4 o'clock. And we'll make sure we get that posted in the paper as a public meeting.
Sounds good.
And maybe Crystal, while I have you, can you email Greg and throw that date and time out at him?
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
We anticipate about an hour.
Let's plan on an hour, yeah.
Okay.
If we can survive an hour that long talking about that, but
Okay. All right. Next is Activities Director Chad Hazelton.
Hello. So as Jeff mentioned, the Minnesota State High School League is looking at changing their bylaws to put 2 superintendents on their board of directors. Those 2 superintendents would be appointed by the Minnesota Association of School Administrators for each term, however long they determine that to be. Each school gets 1 vote to approve or disapprove of the proposed bylaw change. I have talked with Mr. Nelson, and I too am in favor of adding 2 school board members to the State High School League's board of directors. It'd be just a matter of the board giving us the same recommendation. So kind of looking for that. And then that voting would, as soon as we get the go ahead with it, the voting's opened up this morning actually and closes on March 5th. And then they'll announce the results after that. So any questions on that or?
We need
Okay.
to give our recommendation now.
yeah, if we could if anyone is opposed to voting yes for the adding the 2 superintendents, I would speak now or,
I think it's a good idea.
Mhm.
okay.
All right, so we'll get that done tomorrow. As Mrs. Merchant mentioned, we did loosen up our spectator guidelines to include full family households, mom, dad, siblings, so that more than just 2 people could attend our sporting events. So we did that last week. We have 3 weeks left of our season. Playoffs begin the week of March 14th. We'll conclude shortly thereafter with that. There is an semblance of a fairly somewhat normal state tournament proposed. It'll be done at different sites and it won't be exactly the same as it has been, but it's going to be broadcast on Channel 45 and they're looking to try and get a state champion in the winter activities. Spring sports will start March 29th for softball, golf, track and field. Baseball starts the week before that on the 22nd with a week of conditioning where they're not supposed to use any bats, just throwing, catching and weights for that first week. We're currently still looking for some coaches. We need a JV baseball coach. varsity head coach for softball, assistant coach for softball, a assistant or a junior high golf coach, and a junior high track and field coach. So we're still looking for some coaches for this spring. So if you know anybody who wants to coach, have them get a hold of me and we'll see what we can do. Other than that, I think that's pretty much where we're sitting with everything right now.
Okay, any questions for Chad? All right, thank you, Chad. Buildings and grounds with Seth is next.
Not really much to update. Mary pretty much covered everything with the transition and everybody in and all in person. And that went extremely smooth. That's about all I got.
Okay. Community ed and transportation, I see Brent is on.
Hey everyone, kind of like Seth, not a whole lot. I thought our bus drivers did a great job merging our routes, our maroon and gold routes together to just one route. That went pretty seamless. Community ed wise, I talked to Mr. Denault about driver's ed, and our next classroom session we have tentatively scheduled for the end of September next year. And if there's not any questions, that's about it for me.
And is there any way, I know that there was a lot of kids that went out of town, and I don't know if it's because they weren't aware that he was offering the class that he offered in whatever months that was. It was last fall, early winter, I guess. Is there any way to get that word out, Brent, so that people know?
Typically we try to put it in the Ed Plus if we can. This last year, it was, we weren't sure if we were going to be able to have it. And they said we could do it virtually. So we kind of jumped at that chance while we had it. I don't think they're going to allow that once things open up again.
Yeah.
And we're trying to make a consistent thing. And that works best for Mr. Denault year in, year out was the end of September. So hopefully we can just have it then every single year. So it's kind of the norm here.
Yeah, okay. All right. Any other questions for Brent? And last on the agenda is food service with Cece.
I have a question for Chad before he departs. I see we're hiring a junior or a assistant or a junior high softball coach, correct? But not
JV,
a varsity.
Varsity and JV.
All right. And with about a month to go, normally you'd see the coach sort of take that. And I don't know how that works, but those fields need to be prepared for spring before you get into too much of a thaw, in terms of removing snow, trying to get some of that moisture off. Is that something that you undertake or that the buildings and grounds people undertake?
I had a meeting with Bertle last Wednesday and we started that discussion already. So
okay.
Typically Bertle's been kind of in charge of the softball fields. Dale has really worked on the baseball fields and Larry's done a lot with the track. So they're going to work together to figure out who's going to be doing what. It is pushed back an extra 2 weeks. So we're hoping that we can have the weather help us out a little bit with that area too.
Yeah, we had a discussion today about that already. I got a feeling we're going to be thawing out sooner than later. So we're talking about in this freeze coming up or the colder days when we have below zeros at night, taking the opportunity and start working on things to get it opened up before we get caught not being able to do that.
Okay, thanks, Seth. Any other questions? Okay, Cece.
Well, I think Jackie's on too. I don't really have anything, but I know that when they started serving the high school all in person, it was another extra load for our cooks, and they still are one person down. So they have been doing an absolutely awesome job and are working pretty hard. So that's about all I have.
The,
I did have the adult meal price thing in there for you.
is there any comment or information on that? I did see the document, but
And that's something that we don't have control over. The state sets a minimum price and we basically went to the minimum price.
So that was in the board packet that went out.
yes, it was. Okay. So any questions on that?
Yeah, I would like to, because I had written it down and I think I overlooked it during my my long-winded speech. But yeah, I want to repeat what Cece said as far as the food service, making that adjustment with bringing kids back, and they've been troopers. They're down one person and they're working really hard. They're delivering meals to some of the kindergarten and preschool classrooms, and we have them stationed in the elementary in the morning doing breakfast handouts. So everyone is really stepping up to make things work the best we can under these circumstances. So sorry for missing them, but I want to make sure that they're included with that. So
Okay, all right.
and then I do have one more thing.
Okay.
I just cannot stop talking. This one I blame Ms. Trask on. Last month, we talked about policy 630, and that's with the changes for the weighted grading. And one of the things we talked about, if my memory serves me, was setting the start date. Because next month, if the board approves the second reading tonight, they'll be approving the third and final reading next month. And I don't think we set or determined the start date for the changes. So that is something that if you have a strong opinion on what we want to do, we should probably get that squared away today so that can be updated in the policy for approval next month. Mary, you have anything at the top of your head you want to add on that?
The only comment I would make is definitely would not recommend doing any backtracking just whenever moving forward. So if you'd look at starting with the 21-22 school year, Diane did look at where our students are right now as far as our seniors and their placement, and did not believe that if you would change it for second semester, that would really change anything. So I guess I could, if you want to change it, it would take effect with second semester. What I would do is have her run it both ways, so we really would have an accurate, just, information if a decision would be based on that.
Does it make the most sense to just start it next year?
I feel like maybe it does when
Less
the kids know
Yep.
that at the beginning of the school year, this is the new way.
I agree. I don't know if you can hear everyone. The consensus in the room is that it would start at the beginning of the next school year.
Yeah, I think I was the only one who hesitated on that, just asking that question that Mary just answered, but just how dramatically that would affect the end of this year and if there was a real need to do that. But if it's not going to be much of a swing going this spring, I would go with the September start as well.
All right, we'll make sure we get that updated in that policy for approval next month.
Okay. All right. Any more, Jeff? No? Okay.
Nope, I'm done.
All right, well then we will move on to the regular meeting. Do you need to do anything here? Or do
No,
we
we'll just leave it where it is.
Okay.
I might turn it towards the flag when we do
Okay,
that.
all right.
Everyone can look at something in their house when they're.
Yes, okay, well, we will call the meeting to order at 7:09 and stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. So first up, we need an approval of the agenda.
Motion by Johnson.
Ellis, I'll make that motion.
Do we have a second?
Trask, I'll second.
Okay. Motion by Ellis, second by Trask to approve the agenda as presented. Roll call vote. Ellis,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Trask,
Aye.
Sonstagard, aye. Lyon,
Aye.
Robita,
Aye.
aye. Motion passes. Next is the consent agenda, which includes the approval of minutes, approval of invoices and statements. Personnel, mostly, I think they're all appointments. Appointment of Kurt Storbeck for head track, JP Sweet for assistant track, Janelle Lowe's for junior high softball, Brent Cole for head baseball, Nick Anderson for junior high baseball, Mike Papera for head golf, Ted Furbish for assistant golf. Do we have a motion and a second?
I'll make that motion.
Second by Lyon.
Lyon. Motion by Trask, second by Lyon to approve the consent agenda with the removal as previous listed of Christine Myers for the assistant softball coach. Any discussion? Roll call vote then. Ellis,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Trask,
Aye.
Sonstagard, aye. Lyon,
Aye.
Robita,
Aye.
aye. Motion passes. There are no board presenters. Next is written communications, which is certificates of appreciation presented by Jeff to the school board members.
You want me to go through that spiel again?
That's up to you.
You're the chair.
You can, that's fine. It'll be
Okay.
official.
All right, I will read it. I won't get as long-winded as I was earlier. So this week is Minnesota School Board Recognition Week. The Minnesota School Boards Association has designated this week as a time to recognize the vital role that our elected school board members play in our society. Our school board members play a critical role in creating a vision that reflects what the local community wants the school district to be, and for making student achievement the top priority. School board members make many difficult decisions and spend countless hours working with staff, parents, and community members to ensure our students get the best education possible, and also ensuring a high level of accountability that our citizens expect. So with all that being said, I would like to take this opportunity to do a quick shout out to Lynette Ellis, Boyd Johnson, Tim Lyon, Carla Robita, Robin Sonstagard, and Corrine Trask for your commitment and service to the Lakeland Woods School and community. You are greatly appreciated.
Right.
All right.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
In old business, let's see. The approval and third reading of adoption policy 535, service animals in schools. Do we have a motion and a second?
Motion by Lyon.
I'll second. Robita.
Okay,
She needs one here.
a motion by Lyon, second by Robita to approve the third reading and adoption of policy 535, service animals in school. Any discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Ellis,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Trask,
Aye.
Sonstergaard, aye. Lyon,
Aye.
Robita,
Aye.
motion passes. Then there is the second reading of policies. 410, family and medical leave policy, 425, staff development, 506, student discipline, 522, student sex non-discrimination, 616, school district system accountability, and 630, weighted grade policy with the additional wording to be added to be in effect with the 2021-2022 school year. Do we have a motion and a second?
I'll make that motion.
Any seconds?
I'll second.
Second by Lyon.
Okay. I think Lynn beat you to it, but, so we'll leave Ellis on it. So we have a motion and a second to approve the second reading of those policies. Any further discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Ellis,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Trask,
Aye.
Sonstergaard, aye. Lyon,
Aye.
and Robita.
Aye.
Motion passes. In new business. Oh, let's see. We have a resolution 2020-2021-19, accepting a donation from North Star Electric Cooperative's unclaimed capital credits for the backpack program. Do we have a motion and a second to accept that resolution?
Motion by Johnson.
Second by
Johnson.
Robita.
Okay, a motion by Johnson, second by Robita. Any discussion? Roll call vote. Ellis,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Trask,
Aye.
Sonstergaard, aye. Lyon,
Aye.
and Robita.
Aye.
Motion passes, and a thank you to North Star Electric Co-op. Next is Resolution 2020-2021-20 to accept a donation from Wickstrom Telephone Company for the Technology Department. Which was, and was there an amount on any of
It
this?
was 1,000 on the.
It was well, I think, wasn't it 1,000 on the North Star one? And wasn't it 3,000?
Oh, yeah, it was 34.
Oh, we
or
don't,
something.
okay, sorry.
3,241 per Wickstrom.
Okay. Let's see. So there's that resolution. Do we have a motion and a second?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Ellis?
Second by Lyon.
Lyon. We have a motion by Ellis, second by Lyon. Any discussion? Roll call vote. Ellis?
Aye.
Johnson?
Aye.
Trask?
Aye.
Sonstergaard? Aye. Lyon?
Aye.
Robita?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Wickstrom Telephone Company. Next is the presentation of the Lake of the Woods American Indian Education Advisory Committee resolution issuing a vote of concurrence. Is there anything we want to mention about that?
This is just a yearly thing that we need to do with our American Indian program. And it's in the packet. We have a small committee, but they're dedicated and show up to the meetings. And it's been a challenge to plan and program this year with the pandemic. But we are doing the best we can. So, and it was a vote of concurrence. And basically that's just letting the board know that they've worked with administration and staff and that they are happy with our efforts to provide programming for those students.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve that presentation?
I'll make that motion.
And a second?
Second by Lyon.
Okay, we have a motion by Trask and a second by Lyon. Any discussion?
Just out of curiosity, Jeff, are there numbers still the same as they were? I mean, there was a much higher percentage than I knew there was, and which prompted this to be formed. So I'm just curious if the
Yep.
numbers are still there.
Yes, currently we get just over about $20,000 a year for program expenditures. I can't tell you exactly what the enrollment numbers are, but you have to have at least 20 students identified to qualify for that funding. And if you, basically, if you have 10 students, you still have to have the committee, but you just don't get the funding for it. But you still have to go through some of the pieces of it. So I don't know what our exact enrollment is. It's usually hovers around that 20 mark. About 3% of our enrollment. That number sticks in my head.
Okay, all right. Any other questions or discussions for Jeff? Okay, hearing none. Roll call vote. Ellis?
Aye.
Johnson?
Aye.
Trask?
Aye.
Sonstagard, aye. Lyon?
Aye.
Robita?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next is the first reading and adoption of policies 231, school board member request for information, 422, policies incorporated by reference, and 808, COVID-19 face covering policy. Do we have a motion and a second?
Motion by Johnson.
Second by Lyon.
Okay. Motion by Johnson, second by, I'll take Robita, to approve the one reading and adoption of those policies. Any discussion or questions? All right, hearing none, roll call vote. Ellis?
Aye.
Johnson?
Aye.
Trask?
Aye.
Sonstagard? Aye. Lyon?
Aye.
Robita?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. A motion and a second is needed to approve the first of three readings to remove policies. 407A for health and safety, 426 wellness programs and tools to complete programs, 440 job description, 441 comparable worth. Is there a motion and a second?
Motion by Johnson.
And second?
I'll second.
Motion by Johnson, seconded by Ellis to approve the first of three readings to remove those listed policies. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote. Ellis?
Aye.
Johnson?
Aye.
Trask?
Aye.
Sonstagard? Aye. Lyon?
Aye.
Robita?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next is the approval of the first of three readings to revise policy 428, time off for public office meetings. Do we have a motion and a second to approve the first of three readings?
I'll make that motion.
Second by Lyon.
Okay, any discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote. Ellis?
Aye.
Johnson?
Aye.
Trask?
Aye.
Sonstagard? Aye. Lyon?
Aye.
Robita?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Any other business? No? All right. Hearing none, we will adjourn at 7:24. All right. Thank you, everybody. Yes, thank
Yeah.
you.
Have a good night.